I found proof my mom is a cheater. Unexpected twist. I found proof my mom is a cheater. Unexpected twist. Moving back home at 24 wasn't exactly part of the grand plan. Sarah and I had split a month ago, a mutual agreement after realizing our lives were heading in different directions. No screaming, no dramatic accusations, just a quiet drifting apart. My small apartment felt suffocatingly empty after that, so I packed up my belongings and retreated to the familiar comfort of Havenwood, Pennsylvania, and my parents' house. My parents, David and Diane Hayes, were the epitome of suburban bliss. Married for 28 years, they were the kind of couple who still held hands during walks and finished each other's sentences. Dad was a steady, reliable accountant, while Mom worked part-time as a librarian, always with a kind word and a comforting smile for everyone. Their life was a predictable, comforting routine, the kind I often mocked but secretly envied. Settling back in was easy enough. My old room was just as I'd left it, a time capsule of teenage angst and half-finished projects. Dad was overjoyed to have me back, his face lighting up every time I walked into the room. Mom, as always, was the nurturing presence, making sure I had enough food and asking about my well-being with genuine concern. I started working remotely as a freelance graphic designer, the quiet atmosphere of the house a welcome change from the noise of the city. It was during one of these work sessions, about 2 weeks after moving back, that I stumbled upon something that shattered my perception of everything I thought I knew about my family. I was on Mom's computer. Mine was in the repair shop after a coffee-related incident. I needed a specific font for a logo design, and I knew she had a vast collection on her hard drive. I was navigating through her folders, trying to find the one labeled fonts, when I saw it, a folder discreetly named .system backup. Now, I'm not usually one to snoop, but the leading dot and the cryptic name piqued my curiosity. Inside, I found a series of text messages, images, and files that made my stomach drop. The text messages were suggestive, flirty even. They were sent to a number I didn't recognize. Unknown number. Thinking of you. Can't wait until Friday. The blue dress looked amazing on you today. Unknown number. Meet me at the usual place? Then there were the images. A close-up of a hand wearing a man's watch, a blurry shot of a restaurant I didn't recognize, and a photo of my mom smiling, but it was a smile I had never seen before. A smile that didn't reach her eyes. My heart hammered in my chest. This couldn't be happening. My mom? Cheating? It was inconceivable. As if the texts and images weren't enough, I found a file containing a list of dates and times, each accompanied by a cryptic code. Things like meeting LGB 1900, package delivery NW Trail 1430. That's when I found it. Hidden at the back of a drawer, a deactivated prepaid cell phone. My head swam. The evidence was damning. My mom, the woman who baked cookies for the neighborhood kids and volunteered at the local animal shelter, was apparently having an affair. I felt sick, betrayed, and utterly confused. My parents were the rock of my life, the symbol of stability and unwavering love. How could this be happening? I closed the laptop, my hands shaking. I couldn't tell Dad. Not yet. I needed to be sure. I needed to understand what was going on. The next few days were a blur of anxiety and sleepless nights. I couldn't look at my mom without feeling a mix of anger and disappointment. I tried to act normal, but I was constantly on edge, scrutinizing her every move, analyzing her every word. She seemed normal. Maybe a little more preoccupied than usual, but otherwise, she was the same caring, loving mother I had always known. I started subtly investigating. I paid closer attention to her phone calls, eavesdropping whenever I could. I noticed she was taking calls in hushed tones, often going outside or into another room. She started having book club meetings twice a week, which was unusual. They always seemed to go late into the night. I began to document my findings, creating a timeline of suspicious events. It was like something out of a bad spy movie. I felt ridiculous, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. One evening, I decided I needed to talk to someone. I called Sarah. Even though we weren't together anymore, we were still friends, and I knew she would listen without judgment. "Liam, what's wrong?" "You sound terrible," she said, her voice filled with concern. I hesitated, then spilled everything. The hidden folder, the text messages, the prepaid phone, the late-night meetings. Sarah listened patiently, offering words of comfort and support. Liam, this is a lot to take in, but before you jump to conclusions, have you considered there might be another explanation? Like what? I asked, my voice laced with bitterness. That she's secretly a superhero fighting crime in Havenwood? Sarah chuckled softly. I'm not saying that, but maybe there's something she's not telling you. Maybe she's protecting someone, or maybe she's involved in something that she can't talk about. Her words gave me pause. I had been so focused on the possibility of an affair that I hadn't considered any other explanation. But what could be worse than cheating? The next day, I decided to try a direct approach. I couldn't keep this bottled up any longer. Mom, I said casually during dinner, I was thinking about relationships lately, how important honesty and fidelity are. She looked up from her plate, her eyes meeting mine. That's very true, Liam. Honesty is the foundation of any good relationship. Right? I said, my voice tight. So, what would you do if you found out someone you loved wasn't being honest with you? Her face paled slightly. That would be very upsetting, she said, her voice barely a whisper. I would hope they would have a good reason for keeping something from me, and if they didn't, I pressed. She avoided my gaze. I don't know, Liam. That's a hypothetical situation. Her evasiveness only fueled my suspicions. I knew I was right. Something was definitely going on. Driven by a mix of anger and concern for my father, I decided to take things a step further. I needed to know who she was texting, who she was meeting, what she was hiding. That night, while she was at her book club meeting, I went back to her computer. This time, I was determined to get into that prepaid phone. It took me a while, but I finally managed to bypass the security lock. Inside, I found a treasure trove of information. The messages were encrypted, but I recognized the format. It was a basic substitution cipher, the kind you learn in elementary school. I spent hours decoding the messages, my heart pounding with each revelation. It wasn't an affair, it was something far more sinister. The messages contained references to laundering, Havenwood Fund, and cryptic names like Silas and the banker. They talked about deliveries and deadlines. I realized that my mom wasn't having an affair. She was involved in something illegal, something dangerous. I had to find out what. One evening, I decided to follow her. She told Dad she was going to a late-night book club meeting, but I didn't believe her. I waited until she left, then slipped out of the house and followed her in my car. She drove to a secluded park on the outskirts of town, a place I hadn't been to since I was a kid. She parked her car in a dark corner and got out, looking around nervously. I parked a safe distance away and watched as a man approached her. He was tall and muscular, with a shaved head and a menacing demeanor. I didn't recognize him. They spoke in hushed tones, their voices barely audible. I strained my ears, trying to catch what they were saying. Package, tonight, deliver to Silas. Be careful. I snapped a quick photo of them with my phone, a blurry shot in the dim light. It was all I could get. After a few minutes, the man left, and my mom returned to her car. She drove back home, her face pale and drawn. I couldn't keep this to myself any longer. I had to tell Dad. That night, after Mom had gone to bed, I sat down with Dad in the living room. I showed him the text messages, the images, the decoded messages, and the photo I had taken in the park. He listened in stunned silence, his face growing increasingly pale with each piece of evidence. I don't believe it, he said finally, his voice trembling. Diane would never do something like this. I know, Dad, I said, but I've seen the evidence. Something is going on. We need to find out what. He stared at me for a long moment, his eyes filled with disbelief and confusion. Then, slowly, he nodded. Okay, Liam, he said, his voice barely a whisper. Okay, let's find out the truth. We started working together, piecing together the clues I had gathered. We researched the Havenwood Fund, a local charity organization. We looked into Silas, trying to find any connection to my mom. The more we investigated, the more we realized that my mom was in deep trouble. She was involved in something far bigger and more dangerous than we could have imagined. We found a receipt for an expensive watch, bought with cash. Another piece of evidence pointing towards an affair. The tension in the house was unbearable. Mom seemed to sense that something was wrong, but she didn't say anything. She just went about her routine, her face etched with worry. One evening, Dad decided he couldn't take it anymore. He confronted Mom directly. Diane, he said, his voice tight, I need to know the truth. What's going on? She looked at him, her eyes filled with fear. David, I can't tell you. Me? Or won't tell me, he demanded. I deserve to know. Our family deserves to know. She hesitated, then burst into tears. It's complicated, David. I can't explain it. Then I will, I said, stepping forward. You're having an affair, aren't you? You're meeting someone in secret, and you're lying to us. Her eyes widened in shock. Liam, no. That's not true. Then what is it? I demanded. She looked at Dad, then at me, her face filled with anguish. Finally, she sighed. Okay, she said, her voice barely audible. Okay, I'll tell you everything. That night, Diane revealed the truth. She wasn't having an affair. She had been working undercover for the local police for the past year, investigating a money laundering operation connected to prominent figures in Havenwood. The text messages, the prepaid phone, the secret meetings, all part of her operation. Mark Olson, the man I saw her meet in the park, was her contact within the police department. She had been approached by Detective Miller a year ago, who explained the situation. They needed someone who was trusted in the community, someone who wouldn't arouse suspicion. Diane, with her unassuming demeanor and her connections through the library, was the perfect candidate. I felt a mix of relief and disbelief. Relief that she wasn't cheating, but disbelief that she had been living this double life for so long. Dad was stunned. He couldn't believe that his wife, the woman he had known and loved for so many years, had been living a secret life as an undercover informant. But the revelation didn't end there. Diane explained that her cover had been blown. The people she was investigating had become aware of her true identity, and she had been receiving threats. She had been trying to protect us, but she knew it was only a matter of time before they came after us. And they did. The next day, Dad went missing. He didn't show up for work, and he wasn't answering his phone. We searched everywhere, but we couldn't find him. Then we received a call. It was a distorted voice warning us to back off. They had Dad, and if Diane didn't cooperate, he would be hurt. We were terrified. We didn't know what to do. Diane contacted Detective Miller, and together we hatched a plan. We would use Diane's knowledge of the criminals' operation to lure them into a trap. Liam used his tech skills to track the criminals' movements and decode their communications. It was a dangerous plan, but it was our only hope. The next night, we met the criminals at an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of Havenwood. It was a tense standoff, with guns drawn and adrenaline pumping. Diane used her knowledge of the criminals' operation to outsmart them, leading them into a trap. The police intervened, arresting the perpetrators and securing Dad's release. It was over. The money laundering scheme was exposed, rocking the town of Havenwood. Several prominent citizens were arrested, including a local politician and a bank president. But the aftermath was far from easy. The Hayes family was deeply shaken by the experience. Trust was broken, and it would take time to rebuild it. Dad struggled to reconcile his image of Diane with her secret life as an undercover informant. He felt betrayed that she had kept such a big secret from him, and he questioned everything he thought he knew about her. I, too, grappled with my own initial misjudgment. I had been so quick to assume the worst, and I had almost destroyed my family in the process. I learned a valuable lesson about judging people based on appearances. Diane felt guilty about the deception and the danger she had brought to her family. She knew that she had put us all at risk, and she would never forgive herself if something had happened to us. The money laundering scheme was exposed, but Diane's involvement left lasting scars on her relationships, especially with Liam and David. In the end, we decided to seek counseling. We needed help processing what had happened and rebuilding our trust. The ending shows them beginning the process of counseling. The Hayes family would never be quite the same, but we were stronger for having faced the truth together. We had learned that even the most ordinary-seeming people can have extraordinary secrets, and that sometimes the people we think we know best are the ones who surprise us the most.